JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast, your pre-NCAA Tournament version of the podcast, as we get you ready for the NCAA Tournament. And this is a traditional podcast. You ask, we answer. If you're at Wabash Station as a subscriber to GoPowerCat.com, you get to ask the questions. We answer for all to hear. That's how it's set up. But we will have a second podcast that will go up Thursday morning with our picks. That's right. All of our picks. We're going to pick the bracket here right after we're done with this podcast. Yeah, we're going to just kind of gloss over the first four. Because if you don't know, I'm anti-first four.
Who's even? I don't even know who's playing in them.
Pitt is playing
Pittsburgh, Mississippi State,
and two other teams are playing, and then a bunch of 16 seeds. Yeah. Brad Korn is playing. Oh. That I will watch.
Southeast Missouri State.
I believe that is tonight as we tape this Tuesday. We're sponsored by The Fridge, wholesale liquor. Make sure you stop into The Fridge for any and everything you need for your party, including, now available in Kansas,
Yuengling.
Thank you, Zach Carlson, who says it right. I guess. I don't know. Yuengling.
I couldn't tell a difference for the record when I was listening to the podcast.
Right. He just goes, Yuengling, Yuengling, and I go, Yuengling. I put a little pause in there.
It's a first name and a last name.
Right. I'm going to check into Vegas Hotel. Yeah, what's your room order? Mr. Ling? Ying Ling? I'm just very Irish for the Asian name. I need to research the history of the name. Actually, I think it's a family name, if I remember correctly, because the daughters now run it, or the granddaughters or something. Anyway, you can get that at The Fridge because it's available in Kansas. It's my favorite domestic beer. Stop on in and grab you some. Get you some. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Cole Carmody, Ryan Gilbert, and something controversial has happened before we even started this podcast. Ryan Gilbert has decided not to wear headphones.
We're trying something new.
We're going to try it. I thought about just turning off his microphone too, because he wouldn't know. He would have no idea that his microphone. He'd just be talking and just barely picking him up through Cole's microphone. But we'll let him participate because this is mostly a basketball podcast. Cats play Friday night in Greensboro against Montana State. That's a long way for these two teams to go, but thus is the wisdom of the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. Instead of putting this pod in Denver where it belonged, they had to get Kentucky closer than Kansas State. I think that's what's going on here. That's my conspiracy theory for this podcast. Here we go with your questions from Wabash Station. Cole, take it away.
The first question comes from Ohio PowerCat. Does K-State's tournament performance define the season more than the regular season performance?
Yes.
Why?
Well, this is funny. Jim Boeheim, I went down a rabbit hole of watching angry press conferences that he had.
Oh, he's a piece.
And he mentioned how somebody brought up a bad season that they had, but Syracuse went to the Final Four that year, and it should be remembered as a great year. And for once, I agree with Jim Boeheim. doesn't matter what you do for the first 30-some games. You're remembered for what you do in March. So
right.
I say nothing matters. I mean, obviously it matters what K-State did. They did some great things, but this is where you find out if you're good or not here in March.
I think if they lose in the first round, it's not good. We've seen a lot of that around here over the last 11 years or so. So they need to get through the first round.
That's even if they make the tournament.
Right. And we'll see if they can, get through that and get over the hump. Look, if they get to the Sweet 16, they've upheld their seedings. They'd played, in all theory, the 2-seed Xavier at that point. But normally I wholeheartedly agree that the tournament is the measurement. This was always my argument when people threw back that Bruce won 2 Big 12 titles, that while that is nice and historic, and I embrace the fact that it does mean something, when you follow both of those Big 12 titles up with first-round losses, it doesn't mean squat. Yeah, you got to put a year on a banner, but you are measured in March and what you do in this event.
Yeah.
If you finish 5th in the Big 12 and make the Final Four, you know what that season was? A Final Four season. Does anyone bitch that they didn't win the Big 12 tournament in 2018 when they went to the Elite Eight? No. They didn't win the Big 12 or the tournament. It doesn't matter. They made it to the Elite Eight. So, yeah, normally I would say that. But with everything that's taken place with this program, the fact that they're in this tournament is really significant to me.
Yeah, I think you got to beat Montana State for this. For my point here, I think that beyond, if you beat them, everything else is icing because of what this season represented for the program. It was a complete 180. It was in disarray, and if you beat Montana State, that's one NCAA tournament win, yes, but K-State only did that one other time under Bruce Weber.
Amazing.
I mean, Jerome Tang has literally matched Bruce Weber for the NCAA tournament first round if he just wins on Thursday or on Friday. Just to win one game to match his first round performance.
It's ridiculous.
I think
it heals. The Big 12 championships were great, but ultimately, yes, March matters in any other season. But this season, what it meant for K-State and fan engagement and everything else that came along with it, I think you can take the season for what it is, and discount what March is this year. But if you win and you keep winning, I mean, it's all icing at that point.
The foundation has been set. Like, to me, that is what defines this season. Is the foundation has already been set. There's not a lot of people, if anybody outside of that program, that expected them to even be in this position, especially if they win against Montana State. There's not a lot of people that prior to the season would have said, yes, this team will make it to the round of 32. And then if they go on to the next weekend, the foundation is more than set, right? I mean, this is a springboard. In an ideal world, Jerome Tang uses this season as a springboard for future seasons, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think everybody sitting at this table believes that this program is trending in the right direction. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think they have to necessarily go on a major run for this season to be a success. I think if they lose in the first round, then considering where you were seated after the regular season as a 3 seed, it's a disappointment. But, yeah, I mean, I think that as long as they can have some kind of success in the NCAA tournament, this season is a roaring success.
I would agree. Totally agree. They need to get through that first round. You can't lose to Montana State and have another one of those. Those are just so painful when you've had success during the season and then you drop to a much lesser seed. Ryan Wallace brought this up. He thinks there's a big gap between the 13s and 14s in this bracket. So getting to the 3rd seed and getting a 14 seed opposite you instead of being a 4 with the 13 might be significant for this team. And I think K-State will win and win fairly easily. I think the athletic matchup K-State will pose for Montana State will be significant.
It is 1 seed lower than what K-State had with both of those Big 12 championship teams with Weber, but like LaSalle they weren't terrible. UC Irvine didn't lose, I don't think, since like January of that season, right? Montana State does not scare me. But back to the question, if Kansas State does get bounced, I think we'll remember this season as, there's a bright future ahead of K-State basketball, right? And Tang's here, everyone's happy. Did they get bounced? Sure, but I don't think there's going to be quite the uproar that we saw in years past if, for some reason, K-State gets bounced early.
Okay.
The last thing I'll say to this, with 2 All-Americans, though, is it fair to say that if they don't win, this may be if they don't win that first round game, this may be a season fans look back on and say, what could have been? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. I mean, if you lose in the first round, certainly, but this feels like you're playing with house money. Mm-hmm. Nobody expected them to be a 3rd seed. I thought maybe they could get in the tournament, but maybe they'd be in Dayton right now. This is so far beyond what I envisioned for this season. I'm okay, but losing to a 14 seed would suck.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're playing with house money, right, and I get that, but you keep playing, and now you've been dealt, ace queen. Like, you got a good hand. You got to keep rocking with it, So
I agree.
Yep. Next question comes from Americat. Will turnovers be the reason K-State exits the tournament at any round?
Yep, it will. This is their Achilles heel. They turn the ball over way too much. I saw a stat. I can't cite the source on it, honestly, that they're turning the ball over at 30% of their possessions as of late. What the hell? I mean, if they keep it 12 or fewer, they're going to beat anyone they face. And they get above that number, the peril rises with each turnover, and 20 against TCU has just made them non-competitive. And that's the type of teams you'll be seeing in this bracket. Xavier, on paper at least, reminds me a little bit of Baylor. You turn the ball over that many times against Musketeers, you're gone. You're home.
Are you referencing Marquette for the 2 seed?
Marquette is what I said. It sounded like Xavier, but I misspoke.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, that's something else about Xavier.
I wouldn't hear it. I don't have headphones in. Sorry.
Yeah, you couldn't hear it at all. That's interesting because I'm talking in the room with you. But okay. But yeah, Marquette. Marquette reminds me of Baylor. And if they don't have a high number of turnovers, if you get into 15 or more turnovers against them, if you get to that point, you're in trouble. They can't play against Kentucky and turn the ball over, because if they don't turn the ball over and they go on the attack and they get to the rim, they will blow Kentucky off the court. But if it becomes a valued possession game because they keep squandering possessions with turnovers, well, then Kentucky's size and athleticism could really come into play.
I'm going to say no on this one. Or I guess I should say not necessarily. If K-State gets bounced, turnovers might be the reason, but it's not going to be the reason, because you look at Oscar Tshiebwe with Kentucky. I'm sure we'll break that down here a little bit later. You look at the size Purdue has. Kansas State could have 12 turnovers in a game against Kentucky and still lose, just based off of what the opponents can do down low in the paint. So, yeah, it could be turnovers, but it goes without saying you have to take care of the basketball in March for this team to win 100%. But also at the same time, even if K-State does do those things right with turnovers, it doesn't guarantee them a win, especially with the matchup issues.
2 biggest flaws of this team are the lack of size in the paint and the turnover issues. Is that fair?
I would agree. Yeah, lack of
Probably
ability.
The third one might be foul trouble with certain players.
Yeah, and the inability to muscle up down in the low post is something Tshiebwe's going to really test them with if they face Kentucky. I'm not so sure Providence doesn't beat them. I'm not buying on Kentucky at all.
I just think that the turnovers issues have been an issue all season long, but we've said it. The good part about playing in the NCAA tournament is when you get hot, typically the teams that get hot stay hot. And that's why this K-State team can be so dangerous, because we've seen what they were able to do. And what was that? Would be a 5-day span, scoring 116 points on the road at Texas and then backing that up and scoring however many points. I don't have the schedule in front of me. They did against Baylor on the road. Like, we've seen this team is capable of getting really hot, and we've also seen them capable of getting really cold. So you really are playing with fire, but that fire could turn out to be good for this team. So I think the answer is, yeah, I agree with you, Ryan, about the post down low, but turnovers would be a huge issue.
I'll say foul trouble. I think that's what's going to get him. I think if Tomlin keeps getting
different officials, man,
right? But
if you're not used to these guys,
yeah. But if he still gets into foul trouble, if Keontae picks up 2 or 3 in the first half, K-State's going to have a bad time in whatever game that ends up being.
I saw someone picking an upset, and I don't know if it was this game or the mention was that they get to the line a lot. Folks, this is the NCAA tournament. We saw this reflected in Kansas City. They swallowed their whistles a lot more. It becomes much more physical. None of these guys want to be in the crosshairs of screwing up a game. And so they kind of back off things. And that actually can be an impact in a positive and a negative way for K-State. It might keep them out of foul trouble, but also they too like to get to the line a lot. Marquise Noel gets into the lane, and he's hoping to get fouled. And quite often, he's just throwing the ball up at the rim, and if he's not fouled, it's basically a turnover.
We mentioned real quick, can I give a little plug to the shoot-around fits?
Absolutely, you can.
Lack of interior presence. I asked DJ Johnson about that, so by the time you're listening to this, that will be live on YouTube and all of our podcasting platforms. I just kind of laid it out like, hey, what could this team do with a player like DJ Johnson? And it was pretty interesting.
That is a great question.
Thank you.
Huh.
Thanks.
Did Zach suggest it?
I came up with it on my own for once.
Wow, and you don't wear headphones? Huh.
I do for the shoot-around.
Man, he makes this look easy.
Next question comes from Adam K63.
Ah, that jackass.
With all the New York natives on the team, does this give them extra incentive through the first 2 rounds of the tournament?
You'd think so. Zach, do you think the committee did this on purpose?
No.
Just by chance this happened?
I think that there might be a couple like first round or, potential second round matchups they might look at. I feel like if they go this far down the rabbit hole, I don't think it really matters that much.
I'm really perturbed there in Greensboro.
You're what?
Yeah.
Perturbed.
Jeez.
As a 3 seed.
I like that word.
I mean, I can't explain why you send Baylor to Denver. They're not going to sell a damn ticket. Baylor fans don't travel to the Farrell Center. I mean, they do, but you know what I'm saying.
So what's the other little
TCU is out there too. It doesn't. None of it makes sense to me. What they did just doesn't make sense to me. So, oh well.
Maybe they know.
I'm telling you.
I mean, I think after the first seeds, maybe even the second seeds, I don't think they care after the first 2 seeds.
Then get rid of the pod system.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, I'm going to do a daily delivery that'll be also up on Wednesday about the pod system isn't working. Why don't you go to a pod system for the regionals? And I'm going to steal my thunder here. For example, there's a regional in Kansas City this year. Get rid of these mixed pods and go back to having Midwest pods. Put one in Des Moines, one in Wichita. You got Las Vegas, put one in Phoenix, one in, I don't know, Salt Lake City.
San Diego.
LA. Yeah. So that fans can go to the tournament. My team advanced, and you've got a 4-hour or less drive to get to the regional site.
That makes too much sense, though, Fitz.
Well, I know. But what they're doing here just doesn't add up to me at all. If you're going to send a team, you got teams that are I haven't looked at this particularly, but I know some years you could be in the Eastern Regional and playing in a Western pod. And so you pick up and move. So fans essentially have to decide, am I going to go to this or that?
I mean, Turner should just build a studio with a basketball court in Atlanta and just have all the games there. That's essentially what it is. It's a made-for-TV event.
Right.
They don't care about the fans.
They don't. And quit pretending you do. And the logistics of how they have to do these pods has got to be amazing. Just pre-designate. And you could almost do them in 3-year cycles. Like, you're going to pick, you'll be the regional this year and then the 2 pods and just rotate around. That gets too complex. I don't care. But you need to do a better job regionalizing this tournament.
The narrative of Kansas State players playing at Madison Square Garden, though,
it's cool. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
If they get there, and I think that will fuel the team to get there. I mean, to have 4 New York guys in your main rotation is a really cool storyline. And it's the closest area for Keontae to play, being from Virginia. So you've got 5 guys that are going to lay claim to this, be going home in some ways. I know Virginia's a long ways from New York, but it's a lot closer than Manhattan, Kansas, or Kansas City, or
Greensboro. I mean, it's close to Greensboro.
Yeah, it's close to Greensboro too. Yep.
Kurt Kelly, New York guy.
Yep.
I'm sure there's probably somebody else. I think Jeremy Hart might be there too, but yeah, they've got roots. But I don't know how much. I think it could be a curse. This team, Tang mentions how the first game is always the toughest one to win, right? So you can't start thinking about playing in New York. You've got to beat Montana State. You got to beat Providence or Kentucky. You can't get looking too far ahead.
So I can't be sitting here thinking about doing a whole video feature of you trying to play Rucker Park. Send Zach down there with the video equipment to film you just taking everyone to school.
I would pay money to see that.
I would take those guys to school. You guys seen me at the rec?
He can hang.
I can score.
He does go to the rec.
We might have to like a point.
Maybe on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
Make a trip down.
Yeah, if you advance and stay out there, just head on out to Rucker Park. Just walk up. Hello, fellers. What's going on? There you go. Play a little basketball. I'm from Kansas.
I'm from Manhattan. That's what I'll tell them.
There we go. Last question of the first half comes from Fervent Purple. Overall, how do you like K-State's chances to get to the Final Four with this bracket?
I like the East bracket a lot. I did KFH with Bob Lutz earlier today. And he started off with, does K-State actually have an easier path than Kansas as a number one? Because that Western bracket is stupid. I mean, you got so many good teams and Western teams that Kansas has to play through. It's honestly, it's the opposite of what we normally see. They usually get a pretty good path. Or they inevitably get the bracket that explodes into total chaos while they're winning. I mean, they had the 1 year, it's been a while, where they didn't play a single digit
that was last
seed
year.
Until they got to the Final Four.
That was last year.
They did that again last year?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. But I think that could be the Eastern bracket this year. I think we could see a lot of chaos there. I don't think Purdue's that good. I think Purdue, if you have someone that can defend in the low post and take away their huge size advantage against everyone, I think the Big Ten's going to have a miserable NCAA tournament. And Purdue is very susceptible. I think Marquette is intriguing, but that's the 2 seed, really. I mean, and Kansas State as a 3 seed isn't really overwhelming people. I think this bracket could become chaotic, and yeah, why not K-State? They play at a level higher than any team I've covered in recent memory, and that includes the Beasley team. That includes the Poland team in, 12 that went to the Elite Eight. This team can play at a higher level. 10. I have no brain today.
Okay.
What if I actually lost my brain at some point in Kansas City? I think it did.
I think you already did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I mean, someone might find it on the sidewalk and look, oh, hey, look, a piece of asparagus. That's my whole brain.
Do you know who the coach of Marquette is? Shaka Smart.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just get that established. Would you like to know the number one song in America the last time that Shaka Smart won an NCAA tournament game?
Oh, boy.
Play that funky music, white boy.
Close enough. It was
2011 VCU.
It'd be Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke and Pharrell. So a long time ago.
I don't know, what year was that?
It's like 2012, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Marquette doesn't scare me because Shaka Smart has tried to tell us that he's only ever been capable of doing anything in the NCAA tournament one time. He had one run at VCU.
But Shaka's back where he belongs now.
He's not at Texas.
Texas was a terrible fit.
Right. I would agree.
So,
I agree.
No, this is the perfect storm for Shaka, but also at the same time.
Do you understand,
yes.
though?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Everything we've said about Kansas State with year one and all the fun things that have happened can probably be said with Shaka Smart as well. So
true. We don't know what to expect from Tang, and I feel like Shaka has tried to tell us for the last however many years that he's been a coach what he typically does in the tournament. And I agree, Texas is a completely different story, and good for Rodney Terry. He seems to be figuring it out, but I'm just that Marquette team. If you look at all the other 2 seeds that K-State would have to play, if they were in different regions, I think that's probably the 2 seed that I'd want to play if you're K-State. I mean, UCLA has been to the Final Four as recently as 2 years ago. Arizona, obviously, is a major contender for a national championship, and Texas just won the Big 12 tournament. If you ask me out of all those, out of them, and you include Marquette, of the 4 2 seeds who I'd rather play, I would say Marquette.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
And if you ask me of all the 1 seeds, who would you rather play between Houston, Purdue, Kansas, and Alabama, I would say Purdue.
Let me throw this out. I didn't even put it together that Texas, that used to have Shaka Smart as coach, is also a 2 seed along with Marquette. I think it's interesting. But if Texas goes to the Final Four, does Rodney Terry get the head coaching job?
This shouldn't even be a conversation. He should get it, right?
Right, she should.
I think to get that job, if he gets bumped first weekend, I don't think he's getting it. I think he should, but I don't think he is if they get
Short of winning a national championship, Texas wants a name.
Yeah.
It's the most Texas thing I've ever seen. This guy just won the Big 12 tournament, placed second in the conference, has kicked the tar out of Kansas in back-to-back meetings between those teams, and yet they're still talking about hiring someone else.
Well, they would play.
It's just the most silly Texas thing I've ever heard.
They would play A&M if they win. They'd either play A&M or Penn State. So if they lose to Texas A&M,
oh yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good for his future. But yeah, I mean, back to the question. There's a bunch of sleeper teams in this bracket. So like, I think Memphis could beat Purdue. I don't think
I've got that on my bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
that's a horrible matchup for Purdue.
And then we look at Oral Roberts and Duke. I mean, that's the 5-12 game. Duke hasn't lost in forever, it seems like, coming off of an ACC championship or an ACC tournament championship. And Oral Roberts is the best mid-major team in the country, and led by. You remember Connor Vanover from Arkansas, who we were all just amazed with last year? Yes, led by Connor Vanover. So, I mean, there's going to be some upsets. And by the way, Tennessee is awful. I watched them play multiple games this season without their point guard. They lost to Missouri. They're a weak 4 seed. I believe that. So, I mean,
I agree.
The bracket is just so up in the air, which is good for K-State.
It'll be fun.
But it's also, you never know what's going to happen, and that's why they say it's March.
It'll be fun to sit in a bar and watch those Thursday games and not have to be working at a site. Right. Doing a bunch of coverage for the K-State game. No, not me. Not this year. Gills and Zach have the coverage for GoPowerCat.com going out on the road. The old farts, Michael Goins and myself, are staying home. Let the young guys take the wear and tear. I will rest up for bigger things. But I will see if I can jump on board to go to Houston. But that's a whole nother topic. We'll be right back.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought.
Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, and get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
Welcome back to the PowerCat podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Cole Carmody, and Ryan Gilbert, who is his naked head is doing a good job. He's not wearing headphones. He's opted not to wear headphones, and I just don't think he looks right. He's just the guy in the microphone. We're all
I have hair.
He had to say that, didn't he? Just
in spite. Yes.
Okay, we're going to go on now. It's your questions from Wabash Station. You ask, we answer. That's a podcast. Cole's got them. Here we go.
Next question. First question of the second half comes from El Camino Cat. The 3 seed earned by the Cats for this year's NCAA tournament was the second best earned by a Wildcat team, behind only Poland Clemente's 2 seed in 2010, since the tournament expanded in 1979. What does that tell us about the strength of this team?
I don't know what to think of this team. This team could absolutely unload and move through this bracket, or they could lose in Greensboro to someone. I don't understand this team. And like I said, though, I didn't expect this. So this team can play at such a high level that it could go to a Final Four. And we've also seen this team just stink it up and go through the motions and turn the ball over and not shoot it well and get foul trouble piling up and lose. So it's impressive. It's amazing. The Big 12 was just loaded this year. I think the Big 12 wins every first-round game it's in.
We're going to talk about that later.
We're going to talk about that later. I'm just going to say that.
I agree with Fitz.
Thank you. Golly.
I think it says more about the conference than it does about K-State.
Yeah.
I mean, their record wasn't tremendous in league play, but because of their wins, I mean, you just win a game in conference and you're automatically, that win looks twice as good as any win in the ACC. So
the conference is completely different than what it was in 2010.
Yeah.
Completely different. Back then it was KU, and then it also ran, and then the rest of the also trieds.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you have...
You just made up a nice term. I like it.
The also trieds. Now you have like 3 people, including KU, and then you have a couple also rans, and then other people that tried very hard. So, like, it's just a different league now, especially with 10 teams and you play everybody. So it's completely balanced. It's completely fair. You know, it's crazy though that, because if you compare this team to the 2010 team that was a 2 seed, I think that team wins by 10 points probably. I don't think I don't think this team plays remotely anywhere close to winning against, that Poland and Clemente team.
That 2010 team is a lot more disciplined.
Yeah.
That's Frank Martin. I mean, you could correct me, but he recruited, pretty much most of those players, maybe not all of them, out of high school. And Tang, I'm sure he had some relationships as an assistant, but, if Tang had his pickings for years upon years at K-State, this would be a totally different roster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
I think
2010's better, yeah.
I think this also just shows how dominant Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel were. I mean, that's also what the 3 seed says, because without either one of those 2 guys' All-American performances, this team's not where they are. So, I mean, you had Clemente and Poland in 2010. You had 2 stars lead you to that 2 seed. You got 2 stars leading you to that 3 seed here. I think it kind of shows you need just more than one guy to get a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
And me and Fitz, I think we've all touched on this, of how you need a third consistent dude, and Kurt Kelly was kind of that guy. It was sort of a 3-headed monster. Naquan Tomlin, he's been there, but he's been out of foul trouble. And, Desi Sills has a high ceiling, and he's also shown us he has a low floor, too. So goes without saying those guys have to step up.
Yep. Next question comes from Salt Hawk Cat. Why does K-State's Friday game tip off so late? What are your thoughts on that? I already know that Zach is going to just
go.
absolutely
Zach,
go crazy on this one.
It's ridiculous. It is a 9:40 local tip-off.
And that's assuming the first game gets done.
That's assuming that Kentucky Providence isn't a triple overtime game, which honestly, I feel like I've spoken it into existence.
So how many games are there before Kentucky and Providence on that?
That's a different session. There's 2 sessions each day.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, every session has an early game. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody, there's probably a local start of at least noon or earlier for most places, or at least before 12:30. So, you've got to play all the games, and obviously some game has to be late, but the fact that K-State gets the late one sucks for us.
And sucks for them, too.
Yeah, it sucks for them because,
sit around all day.
Because going from Friday to Sunday, they try getting those games done a lot earlier. They don't go late into the night like they do Thursday, Friday, and maybe even a little bit on Saturday. Sunday, they try, putting those into more afternoon, not necessarily going, burning the midnight oil, especially on the East Coast.
This does, it does suck for Kansas State, but you got to remember, for the first game, both teams are playing late, right? So, and in Tech, Montana State's traveling farther, so I don't think you can say it's terrible for Kansas State, but also like with the second game, if Kansas State does win, I know Tang's been asked about that. I think Arne Green mentioned it, and Tang just kind of brushed it off. Like, I'm not in the market to make any excuses for the scheduling, right? Tang wants to win these games, and I'm sure he's maybe not pleased about it, but I mean, he's not going to make this a reason they lose is because of the tip-off time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
and the other thing
it sucks
is,
for us, Zach.
right?
Don't
It
get me
sucks
wrong,
for us.
but
The other thing, though, is in the Big 12 tournament, you're definitely playing 24-hour or shorter turnaround time, for 2 games. Mm-hmm. NCAA tournament, at least you've got 36 hours or so, a minimum. So it's not the end of the world in the NCAA tournament for sure, but just considering conference tournaments, they'll be fine. And even then, on the back end, New York being a Thursday, Saturday, a little bit shorter rest, but I mean, they're playing every 3 nights of the Big 12, so it's not.
I'll go back to that 2010 when in the Elite Eight, in the Sweet 16, Kansas State has a war that goes into double overtime with Xavier, and that's the last game of that night, and they turn around and play the first game of the next round.
especially playing up in the altitude.
Yeah, and it was just crazy.
Not easy.
I mean, it was just insane that they had the Salt Lake City venue playing the early game in that Elite Eight. It was stupid. Put K-State at a disadvantage. I know I love conspiracy theories, but I really feel like there was an effort to get Butler home to Indianapolis for the Final Four. I just do, and they got it done, and then they stunk.
If K-State plays Kentucky on that Sunday, there's no way they'll turn around and put them at that first game of the day, right? I mean, you wouldn't think.
They could.
No, they absolutely
Don't
would.
put it past the NCAA.
I mean, there's only one session. The East Coast, I mean, what are the other places?
Orlando.
Albany, Orlando, Sacramento.
Birmingham.
I don't
So it's like a
remember what
1 in
days.
Birmingham. So it's like a 1 in 6 shot that they're playing that first game of the day.
I'd say it's more like a 1 in 2 shot that they'll be in the noon hour.
I just think that's bad for college
So, I don't know.
basketball. But that's beside the
I
point.
mean, it'll probably be an early session, but they'll probably still be the second game of the day.
Yeah.
I wouldn't anticipate them being early.
I think the committee heard Fitz's comments about K-State not getting Denver, and they wanted to punish Go Power Cat by placing K-State as the latest game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
makes
clearly
sense,
it.
doesn't it?
That's clearly it. They knew I wanted something. Same reason UNLV will never be in the Big 12. That's the only reason, I think.
Yep.
It's not that they're not qualified. Boy, we know they're qualified, but Fitz wants them in. Sorry.
Next question comes from KLG Digital.
Let's move on. I'm getting...
Is this a new person?
I don't know. I didn't look that closely.
Okay, well,
I don't think we've
think-
said that name before. So
Yeah, I don't
welcome.
think so.
Zach's
All right.
just booking it.
Was the Big 12 punished for being the best league by far, they say, and beating each other into oblivion?
Punished? Well, yeah, I think Oklahoma State doesn't get in because of that.
That's ridiculous, by the way.
I think
It's odd that you have two seeds, right? Or excuse me, 2 3 seeds, a 2 and a 1. So you're proving that the top half of the
Right.
league is amazing.
They literally looked at the top of the conference and said, "You guys are great job." And then they go down the bottom a little bit and they're like, West Virginia, 9 seed."
I think
And then literally nobody else.
I think Kansas was punished for being in too good a conference when the head of the selection committee says, "Well, we looked at Houston's quad 2 wins." Well, when did that become a thing?
right?
It was almost like, well, the Big 12 the numbers were so distorted, we didn't care. It didn't make sense to me. This is my theory on Oklahoma State not getting in. And there's so many moving parts in putting together the bracket, trying to avoid Big 12 teams or any conference teams playing each other until they prefer the Elite Eight, but they'll do the Sweet 16 if they can't get around it. Well, I think they put 2 Big 12 teams in the 6th slot with TCU and Iowa State, and then they realized, oh crap, Oklahoma State can't advance to play them because both of those teams are playing the play-in winners.
What about the Big Ten, though? That issue had to have presented itself somewhere with 10
it does.
teams.
It does. But I think they had decided these teams were 6 seeds, and then at that point, at 6 seeds, you don't want to – if you move them to another site, there's a domino effect, and you
got to keep K-State and Greensboro.
I literally think they got to the end and said, I'll just leave Oklahoma State out. because I feel like that's how reckless and careless and casual this committee was.
Mm-hmm.
This bracket doesn't make sense to me at all.
Can I defend Kansas on this podcast?
Absolutely.
I don't understand why they don't have the Midwest region. That's
exactly it. That's why he said that Houston got the
Yeah.
Midwest, because they had more quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And what are you talking about? That doesn't have anything to. They just kind of made up. I hate it when committees just make up rules that fluctuate from team to team.
He sat on TV in front of all of America and literally believed everything he said, and everyone watching TV said, "Oh, this guy's full of crap." Everybody knew what he was saying was just full of crap, but he believed it.
Where's the AD at? I didn't even notice.
It was Bradley, I believe.
All I got to say is, if future employees were watching that, he ain't getting a job.
No.
He made no sense in anything he was saying. It was crazy. Then he mentioned Bill Self's absence from the Big 12 tournament as being the reason. What the hell does that have to do anything? He'd already said he was coming back.
That should be the opposite impact.
Right.
Because you didn't have an important part of your team.
Yeah, why should it matter?
They said Houston was punished for losing, or they were not punished for losing a game without their best player. But Kansas is punished for losing the championship game without their head coach?
Right. Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Craziness.
Yep. The last question.
KU, hang on.
Sorry,
real
go
quick.
ahead.
I'm so sorry. I just want to say that.
Well, if you had headphones on, you would have heard the producer saying, "Okay, Cole,
No,
take
I
this
don't
one."
have. He took my headphones.
We got the producer back here that's telling us, go to the next question.
Danger Cat's telling us what to do.
Oh, he's not anyway.
But two things, real quick. Number one, can I talk? I can't hear you whispering.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. God dang it. KU, it's interesting. You look like the Ken Palm and the net rankings, they're not a top 4 team. So if it was just based off of that, they wouldn't be a 1 seed at all. And that's just something that crossed my mind. I guess that was kind of pointless to bring up. But
no, I mean, if you're looking at
maybe that's why they didn't get the best region, right? But also, I pulled up from the Stillwater News Press, they had somebody from the committee tell them that Oklahoma State had 18 opportunities against Quadrant 1 wins, against Quadrant 1 teams, and they had 6 wins. And so maybe that's kind of what...
Yeah, you played too good of a schedule.
Over the edge.
Yeah. They just said, you played too many quality teams. We went with teams that played lesser quality.
I mean, 6 Quadrant 1 wins. I'd like to see the bubble teams.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
We put in teams that played less challenging games. So there. I mean, look, do you want them to play good games or not? I'm not even sure what the committee wants anymore.
Did you guys hear what Tang said on, I believe it was CBS Sports Extra? He went on CBS Sports Extra and said that he believed Oklahoma State should have been in the NCAA tournament. He said that they played Nevada and they played Oklahoma State. Nevada was one of the last teams in. He said, and Oklahoma State was the much tougher team, as I believe exactly what he said. And so he believed that they should have gotten in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, Tang would say all 10 teams should be.
Was Nevada an automatic qualifier, or did they get out?
No, they're in the first 4.
Yes, that's right. They are. Yep, they are in the first 4.
Yes. They play Arizona State tomorrow or Wednesday.
Which is, okay, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go off a rant, and then we'll get to the last question. But Arizona State getting in the NCAA tournament because they hit a freaking half-court buzzer beater against Arizona. That's why they get in the NCAA tournament? Because they hit a buzzer beater? A half-court buzzer? No. It should be a body of work, and Oklahoma State has a better body of work. That's just plain and simple. But anyways, what are you going to do?
I know. I mean, Pitt doesn't belong in eyes. It's just crap.
Yep. Well, they'll lose in the first round, and it'll be that. So, last question of the podcast comes from I Like Pickles Cat. Over under 11.5 Big 12 wins in the tournament. That's kind of a strange, number. I don't even know where to.
I just bet that. I picked over.
Is that actually a thing?
Yeah.
Is it 11.5?
Yeah, it was at 11.5. I saw it on some other sports book that we don't have available in Kansas. There was a tweet mentioning 10.5, but we don't have that book. I don't even know what it was. I'd never heard of it before.
Yingling Sport
Rivers?
No, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
So I found it on one of the books that they had 11.5, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm confident they're going to win 6 out of 7 in the first round.
So
okay,
yeah.
If someone goes to the Final Four,
pretty much.
then you're at 9.
Yeah.
You need 2 more wins. I'm envisioning 3 or 4 teams in the Sweet 16. Will that happen? I'm not sure, but if they get 4, I'm almost there with that. So,
I'll take the over.
I went with the over.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which is probably why it won't happen.
So we'll talk about this in the next podcast we do But who's most likely to get bounced in the first round? West Virginia? Is that the obvious answer?
Iowa State. I don't trust. Iowa State and Kansas State are both susceptible to horrible performances.
Yeah,
And
Iowa State,
particularly Iowa State away from home.
The winner of the play-in, though. So,
well, that often doesn't work out. That sounds like an advantage, but they've got a game under their belt.
So does TCU. TCU gets to play in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Both those teams, those play-in teams, quite often, unless they're K-State playing Cincinnati, come in with a win and are relaxed and go out and play some pretty good basketball, unless they're K-State playing Cincinnati. And then they look like crap.
So do you think West Virginia will win their first round?
I do.
I would say West Virginia has the worst chances, in my humble opinion, to win its first game.
They're the least talented of all the teams of the Big 12 that are in the NCAA tournament.
I would agree.
But I think all 7 of them could win. I really do. Is this the best year, sticking with the conference theme? Well,
by seeds, they should. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, technically, West Virginia's the under. Are they the underdog? I haven't looked at
they're the
2-point
favorite.
Yeah, 2-point
They
favorite.
are the worst seed, but Vegas knows done it.
Is this the best depth the Big 12's had in the tournament?
No doubt. It absolutely is. I mean, there's no one in the play-in. There's no one even a 9 or 10 seed.
That's pretty impressive. There's no double-digit seed.
Not a single one.
And 70% of the conference is in the tournament.
Not a single one.
Could have been 80.
Should have been 80. 60% of the women. It's really easy when you got 10 schools to do that math, by the way. It is impressive that the Big 12 had the highest percentage in both men and women in the tournament of conferences.
K-State hosting the women's NIT on Thursday. Go out and watch. Play the Wichita State Shockers.
You get a courtside ticket for $25.
Really?
Honestly, seriously, I know as we end up the podcast, but that's a big deal for this team this year without their
like one of those at midcourt, one of those seats.
I don't know, since it's the NIT now, they might change some stuff, but I would assume it's probably one of those little midcourt seats. I don't know. You thinking about it, Fitz?
Yeah, just for a second.
Do you want to know what the origin of Yingling is?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yingling is an angelicized version of Jungling, its founder surname and the German term for young person or youngster. So it's not Asian, it's German.
Well, I knew it wasn't Asian.
Yingling in Mandarin is collar.
Is it? Is it really?
I looked it up. I'm serious.
So you can go to the bar and say, I'll take a collar?
A collar.
It is a strange word to be German.
Or you can go to the bar in Germany and say, you want a Yingling, and they're going to give you a youngster.
Well, that's a whole different topic. That would be controversial. Wow. I don't want that.
Wow, you should have ended it right there. That was perfect.
Oh, my goodness. We got to go. We got to go.
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Power Cat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
Get in on the action with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circa Sports Iowa is where the pros play. Enjoy the highest limits, lowest takeouts, competitive betting menus, and the best customer service. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Iowa. Circa Sports Iowa. Sports betting the way it should be. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com for details.